Universities across the country figuring out how they might bring students back on campus this fall. Some even suggesting that they could still have a football season. But the president of the University of Michigan does not share that optimism entirely, telling the Wall Street Journal he has, quote, some degree of doubt as to whether there will be college athletics anywhere, at least in the fall. University of Michigan President Dr. Mark Schlissel joins me now. He is also an immunologist by training. All right, Doc, let's start with football. My best friend, Michael, went to UMich. We are Wolverines fans in this household. Go Blue. Football is such an important part of your university. How do you even start to think about opening up the big house for games?
Oh, gosh, Allison, our student athletes are also students, and our goal is to be able to find a way to bring students back to campus safely. I'm very confident that we'll be able to do that, although we're still working on the details and a final decision's yet to be made. But I can't imagine if you can't bring regular students back to campus for their studies, then you really can't bring student athletes back to campus for their competition. But as I said, I'm cautiously optimistic we'll be able to bring all our students back.
I know that in the major leagues, athletes have unions that can advocate for them. College athletes don't have that. Do you plan on including your student athletes in the decision-making process in any way?
Yeah, the student athletes are important, and all of our students are important. We've reached out to different student groups, asking them their thoughts about coming back to campus for the fall semester and talk to them about what such a semester would look like. Our athletic director and coaches speak to their student athletes all the time. I don't think anybody would be forced to participate in an athletic event if they didn't feel safe doing so. And also, we're part of the Big Ten, and the Big Ten as a group has put together a committee of health representatives from each of the campuses who are working on a back to sports kind of blueprint for us to share.
Let's talk about academics, because you said this. I mean, how can you even think about playing sports or the having a football game at the big house if you're not ready to bring students fully back to campus? Where are you in that decision-making process about potentially bringing students back? And as an immunologist, what are the different health factors you're considering and thinking about as you try to figure out how to bring your students back safely?
Yeah, what's really influenced my decision-making is the realization that we're going to have to learn to live with COVID-19. It's going to be with us for at least this full academic year. It won't go away till we have a vaccine. And even if we have a vaccine at the end of the year or the beginning of the new year, it's going to take quite some time to vaccinate 300 million people times 2 injections. So we're planning for the full year. And what it's going to take is the public health toolbox. It'll take social distancing, masks, the ability to test people for virus to see who's infected. It'll take having larger classes be happening online and smaller group experiences being done in person, labs being done in person, arts instruction being done in person. So it'll have to keep in mind the same concepts that we're being asked to use to keep us safe as regular residents of the state of Michigan.
Then, of course, there's the factor. I mean, University of Michigan is an enormous school, and you have so many students coming from out of state, some coming from areas that are potential hot spots. I just can't even imagine how you think about that entire student body and how you are sure that students coming in are safe, that students coming from places where they still may have high instances of COVID-19. I know it just must be so much to evaluate, to factor. And they would be back, what, in a matter of a couple of months?
Well, if we're able to bring students back, what we would do would ask them to isolate themselves for 2 weeks before they travel back to campus.
Okay.
And as soon as they arrive, we would intend to test them for COVID-19 to see whether they're infected or not, and then get those results back. And then 3 weeks later, probably test them yet again. And that way we could take folks that do have an infection and sequester them from the rest of the community so it doesn't spread. But if the incidence of COVID-19 is still not low by the time September rolls around, we won't be able to bring students back. This is presuming that we continue on the trajectory that Michigan's been for a number of weeks now of decreasing number of cases, decreasing numbers of deaths, a really good positive result.
Some students are suing their universities now to try to get some of their tuition back, saying that remote learning just isn't the same as being on campus. Are you considering lowering tuition if you can't bring students back on campus and into the classroom next year?
Well, the regents set the tuition for the university, and what I feel committed to do is to provide the very best education possible for University of Michigan students. And what defines very best is the context, but every one of the students that comes here and graduates is going to have a full value University of Michigan degree and a great education that'll give them all the advantages that graduating from college gives to our alumni.
Dr. Schlissel, there have been a number of op-eds predicting that this pandemic will be a reckoning for higher education. How do you think that the coronavirus will change colleges and universities in America for years to come?
I think we're still learning about that. You know, one thing we're learning is that you can do certain aspects of education remotely. You can do it online and you can do it well. And there are other aspects of education where you just can't replace a professor sitting around with a handful of students discussing a challenging topic. But I think being forced to go remote last spring got a lot of our faculty over the threshold of trying new modalities of teaching. And I'm sure that'll continue to influence how they educate students in the years ahead after the pandemic is over.
Dr. Mark Schlissel, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us while you make these difficult decisions for your university. And I will say it one more time for our producers in the back who are from Penn State. Go Blue.
Go Blue. Thanks very much, Allison. Bye-bye.
Amazon's annual shareholder meeting virtual for the very first time, but that didn't stop shareholders from demanding more transparency about how Amazon is protecting its workers during this pandemic. NBC News business and technology correspondent Joe Kent joining me now. And Joe, how did CEO Jeff Bezos address those questions about employee safety?
Yeah, he says that they've been protecting safety as much as they can. In fact, I want to read you the quote. He says he's proud of the job that the team has done so far and that they've taken it seriously since the very beginning. So, of course, they have previously announced, Allison, as you know, that they're reinvesting their profits into the COVID-19 battle plan, if you will, for safety for these employees. But he's sticking by what he's said, what his company has been telling us now for months, that they are doing everything they can to prioritize safety.
Joe, several employees at Amazon say that they were fired for speaking out against the working conditions there. Did Bezos address that, and what did he say?
Yes, exactly. So that was brought up several times during the shareholder meeting. And Bezos said exactly that he supports every employee's right to criticize their employer's working conditions, but that also doesn't mean that they're allowed to not follow internal policies. And as you'll remember, Chris Smalls, the employee that was let go and fired at JFK 8, that Staten Island facility where he'd also organized a demonstration against Amazon's safety precautions. Well, he was supposedly fired, according to Amazon, because he did not follow their health and safety policies. That's what they cite. But Chris Smalls has directly told me several times that he felt that he was let go and fired because he was agitating on the outside, something that he continues to do to this day, Allison.
Joe, we know these meetings usually include proposals for the company, some of them from activists. Anything notable, unusual on the table this year, and did any of them pass?
None of them passed in terms of outside shareholder proposals, but there was a recurring theme about climate change, about issues of safety and transparency. A lot of these shareholders want to learn more about what's going on inside the company, and they're not alone. They are certainly supported by a lot of shareholders out there, and some journalists want to see more, us included, about how these policies are actually put into place, how they're executed. You know, Amazon is a company, Allison, that does not disclose how many cases of COVID-19 they have that are positive, or the fatalities that they have, that their employees have, that we've been counting. So we've been keeping our own independent count here, but it's a difficult thing to deal with when you're dealing with a company of this size that has effectively, Allison, become a utility for so many shoppers out there.
Yeah, Joe, it sure has. Unbelievable. If you said it a year ago, Joe, we never thought that this shareholder meeting would be done virtually, but these are the times. Thanks so much for letting us know what went on there.
Mm-hmm.
COVID-19 antibody tests can be wrong up to 50% of the time. That's according to new guidance from the CDC. Experts say testing is a key part of reopening the country safely, but what happens when those tests aren't entirely accurate? Joining me now, Dr. Joseph Venetz, infectious disease specialist at Yale Medicine. Dr. Venetz, what do you make of this new guidance from the CDC? How can we get a handle on this pandemic if antibody tests just aren't accurate?
Hi, Allison. Nice to see you again. So antibody tests, first of all, are done for a couple of different reasons. So we have to know why we want to do them. Some people want to know, are they immune? Some people want to know, can they donate plasma? But public health authorities might want to know, what are the patterns of spread of the coronavirus? The CDC guidance notes that there are many tests out there, and it's not clear which tests are the good ones. And so if anybody wants to get an antibody test, or some public health authority wants to get an antibody test, it should be done in a reliable laboratory with highly validated tests that are available. There are a lot of charlatans out there still that put forth very bad tests that had poor accuracy, that either were false positive or false negative. And the best way to avoid that is using the tests that are done by either university laboratories or by Quest or LabCorp or National Mayo Clinic, ARUP, the laboratories that are reliable, that have done extensive validation.
Dr. Venetz, today the U.S. hit a tragic milestone, 100,000 deaths. The initial forecast for this outbreak was a range from 100 to 240,000 deaths. Now that we have hit this mark, what can we do? How do we avoid hitting that higher end of that forecast?
Well, it's tragic, and we have over 1,000 deaths a day still. The number of cases seems to be going up. So as far as I can tell, there's no end in sight. It breaks my heart. It breaks all of our hearts. This is a terrible problem. And then we have, from the very top of our political structure, denial that this is even happening. It's bewildering to me.
We know that vaccine research right now is moving at a record pace. Here is what Dr. Fauci said on CNN this morning.
I still think that we have a good chance, if all the things fall in the right place, that we might have a vaccine that would be deployable by the end of the year, by December, November, December. I believe we can.
Yale Medicine is part of the vaccine efforts. How is this research able to happen so quickly? I know it can often take decades to come up with a vaccine.
Well, the good thing is the coronavirus is a stupid virus that has not been able to mutate itself to avoid our immune responses. We make powerful immune responses, and all of the vaccine strategies are focused on a single protein called the spike or the S protein. It's just different platforms have it presented to the immune system in a vaccine in different ways. So we know what the target is, and we just need to now deliver that vaccine in a way that will be safe and effective. And really the safety issues have to do with, first of all, is the shot itself safe? Does it cause terrible side effects or not? And so far, those initial shots seem to be okay in the different phase 1 studies that have been done. The next step is what happens after somebody gets infected after getting the vaccine, and that's way down the line. Will there be an inadequate response to not protect people, or will the response be good to protect people, or could the response even be so much as to cause harm after a natural infection? And that's the second safety issue that we simply cannot test yet until a vaccine is deployed to large numbers of people and we can find out what the response is after a natural infection. And that's a phase 3 trial. That is something that's going to happen far into the future because we have to have enough people either getting the vaccine or a placebo to be able to see if the placebo group is more susceptible to infection than the vaccine group after a natural infection. That takes time. You can't rush that. We don't do experimental infections of humans with COVID-19 virus. That would be unethical at this point.
Dr. Venetz, I love hearing you say that this is a stupid virus. You're the first person to come on our air and say that. I love it because I know that means, as you said, it makes it easier to eventually come up with a vaccine. I'd like to ask you one more question about a vaccine. A recent AP NORC poll says even when one becomes available, only half of Americans say they'll get it. How concerning is that? And how much of a hurdle does that create, if that is in fact true, for us as we try to get past this virus?
Well, I don't think that I would rely on those numbers at this point. We really have to wait and see to when the vaccine may be available and to see if it's very effective and very safe, if people might make a different choice at that point. We just don't know. I think it's too early to say.
Dr. Venetz, always great to have you on. Thanks for coming back again, and we hope to see you soon.
Thanks very much, Allison. Looking forward.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.